This right behind me, as many of you will know, is Abdul, my sister's Audi A3. And from the first part of this video, you guys will know that I got this car from Copart for a bargain of just £3,200. Now, with it being a car from Copart, of course this car had a few problems. It had accidental damage to the driver's side part of the car, and the dashboard was lit up like a Christmas tree. Every single warning light you could imagine that was on there. The parking sensors weren't working, the auto hold wasn't working, and a few of the features in the car weren't working either. But since part one, I've been working tirelessly to get this car back on the road, to fix as many of the faults that I could myself before sending it over to a mechanic. And I'm pleased to say, as you can tell, that the car has been repaired, and throughout this video I'm going to take you through exactly what I did and how I did it. Before we get into the rest of this video, please make sure that you like the video and make sure you subscribe to my channel, because we've got a few more parts coming on this series. But without further ado guys, let's get into it. Yes lads, let's get into it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to crack the wheel nuts loose from the wheel. You want to do this before you raise the car in the air, simply because if you try and do it whilst the car's in the air, then all you're going to do is keep spinning the wheel, and then you're not going to be able to take the wheels off. So I'm using a breaker bar, as you can see in this video. You can use the tyre iron that your car comes with, but most tyre places nowadays don't torque up the wheels properly to spec, so it just makes it even more difficult without enough purchase. So definitely invest in one of these breaker bars. Once you've cracked the wheels loose on both sides, then you want to get up your jack, and you're going to want to jack the car up as much as you can. You can again use the jack that your car comes with in its car, but to be honest with you, invest in the trolley jack that I've got here. It's inexpensive and it'll just make jacking up your car light work. Now, when it comes to jacking up the car, what you're going to want to do is locate the jacking points on your vehicle. If you're unsure about where these are, you can find them in the owner's manual. Then you'll want to grab your jack stand. So you're going to want to place this jack stand in the appropriate jacking point underneath your vehicle, and then slowly lower the car onto the jack stand. Now that the car's jacked up in the air, we can set about taking off the arch liner. Now, around the car there are a significant amount of Torx bolts holding the arch liner in, so what you're going to do is you're going to loosen them. Once the bolts have been removed, you can then just pull the arch liner away from the vehicle. It will fight it a little bit, but just give it a good tug and it will all come down. Once that's done, on the inside of the arch liner, you'll find two bolts that are holding in the bumper to the wing. You're going to want to loosen them first and do the same on the opposite side. Then at the top of the bumper, underneath the bonnet, you'll find 4 bolts, and then the bumper will simply just pull away from the car. And just like that, we have the old bumper taken off the car, and this unlocker thing is going to get probably slung into the skip. May preserve the grille, but I kind of want to find the honeycomb RS3 go, but we'll see what happens. Obviously going to make sure that I take off obviously the old fog lights, the headlight washers, the sensors, basically everything that needs to come off the car and put onto the new bumper. Now that the bumper's off, we can now work on removing the wing from the car. So at the top of the wing, underneath the bonnet, there are 4 or 5 bolts holding the wing in place. So you're going to want to loosen them off first. Inside the door there is a couple of rivets, one there and one down there, basically, that I'm going to have to take off, and then basically this wing will just straight off, which will be brilliant. What you'll see as well is that at the bottom of the wing there are 2 bolts securing that in place, and there are also a further 2 bolts on the inside of the wing outside of the vehicle, if that makes sense. And then if you open the driver's side door, there is also another bolt securing it in place, so you're going to want to loosen them as well. With the bolts that are at the bottom of the wing, it's not uncommon to find out that they have been rusted and seized on there, so I pulled out my trusty heat gun and heated that bolt until I was able to crack it loose. And big up my dad for helping me out taking the wing off, even though he did leave me to it halfway through and just fend for myself. But we won't hold that against him, guys. And once I was able to crack it loose, I managed to get the wing off, as you'll see in this clip here. I got it! I got it! So this is now where things get exciting. In this little bag here, a Febby Bilstein part, is the ABS sensor, also known as the wheel speed sensor, and it's located right in there, probably right at the back as far as what I've seen, behind this hub and the brake disc and all that. Given that the impact of the crash was on the driver's side of the vehicle, it only made sense to try the front driver's side sensor first and then see what happens from there. It might be the back ones, it might be the front ones, but I'm pretty sure it is this one here. So let's find out and see if it is that and if we can fix it today. It's a very easy job to do this actually. If you go behind the brake disc, that right there is the speed wheel sensor. You need a hex bit, which is the nut just there, to be able to take that nut off. And then basically remove the electrical connector and then remove the whole sensor and then replace it with a new one. So it is a fairly easy job for you to be able to do yourself. Oh, how wrong was I to think that it would be that easy, because in actual fact the nut was rusted on so bad and no amount of WD-40 would budge it. But after a lot of elbow grease, I did manage to crack it loose and we did manage to get the sensor off. We finally managed to get the all-important speed sensor out. It's only a little thing, you wouldn't think that it would flag up so many fault codes. Just gonna match it up to the Febby Bilstein part that I've got. Obviously if it doesn't match up then I am gonna return it, but I'm pretty sure I got the right one. That is the new part. And as you can see, it is identical to the old one. So yeah, we will just go get this one fitted and see what happens. Fitting this was simply the reverse of removal. So putting the sensor in, grabbing the hex bit and then tightening that back down to keep it in place, and then reconnecting the electrical connector. And that is job done. Now moving on to replacing the body parts. This is the new wing. I managed to pick this up in a colour match as well. So I mean, most of the time these are so hard to get a hold of because most of them have been front end crash damage. So I'm really glad I got that. These marks are just from the paint marker. There is a little bit of like a couple of minor scratches and stuff, but they'll be able to buff out. That'll be no problem. So let's get this fitted to the car. Luckily, installation of the new parts is just the reverse of removal. So in terms of the wing, we're just going to line up the wing as best as we can and start screwing the bolts in loosely. Adjustments will need to be made here and there, aligning it with the bonnet and the driver's side door to make sure that it doesn't impede any of the other panels, as well as making sure that the panel gaps are even. This is a bit of trial and error, so a lot of back and forth movements until you get it as close as you can. And with one final check of the panel gaps, that is the wing complete. So guys, we've run into a little bit of an issue. As you can see, the wing is bolted on, which is brilliant, but where obviously the headlight's meant to sit, it's meant to sit up here, which is fine. This is all straight. The problem is, so this here, if I bring you in closer, this bit here is obviously where the wing and the bumper will meet. So this gets bolted onto the wing around about here, and then there'll be a bracket for the bumper to clip onto. So this has actually been impacted into the crash and basically pushed inwards that way. The reason how I know that is, if we go to the other side, this bit here is obviously where the bracket is, and you can see right there that that's straight and that's bolted through to where that bracket is, this bracket. And if I go show you through the other side, you can see the same thing right here. This bit here is nice and straight. I'm just gonna have a think of what to do. I mean, you never know with projects like this, but it might actually be salvageable. I think I can manipulate that metal back into position and then go from there, so I'll let you know.
A few moments later.
So I've taken the headlight apart from the other side and you can see my theory was correct. So we are gonna have to manipulate that piece back into position to try and get it to line up. Now initially I did use a hammer to bend the metal back into position and it did work for the most part, but unfortunately you can't see it in this clip because I didn't hit record. But what you're going to see me do now is the final little adjustment of that metal. I actually managed to pull out by hand. It was a bit of a pain, but we got there in the end. It's not perfect, but it's better than what it was, and it allows us to bolt the wing onto that bracket. Right guys, I think that's best as I'm gonna get it, and basically when I push it in it will basically all bolt down, so we should be plain sailing from now on. So all I had to do was bolt down the 2 Torx bolts onto the side of the wing, attaching it to that very same bracket, and we can move on straight to the headlight. Old, knackered and pretty much beaten up headlight is off the car. I mean, take a look at that. I mean, it's even got, look at that, a branch from the accident is in the headlight casing somehow, right at the back of the corner as well. And I mean, you can see bottom of it seen better days. I mean, it's lost the bracket where it would sit on, so this definitely wasn't salvageable, but all of the modules were, which was fantastic because I saved a lot on that. And yeah, time to get the new one on instead and discard this. Now, changing the headlights over was probably the most simple part of this whole rebuild. All you gotta do is make sure that the modules and the ballasts that are on the old headlight, you move them over to the new headlight so that it all works as it's expected to be. So you're seeing me here unscrew every single module and transferring it over to the new headlight. Fitting the headlight itself was quite simple. It was simply just a case of the 2 bolts that I removed from the old headlight at the top. I replaced those, and then there was also 1 bolt underneath it that attaches it to the bracket that the wing attaches to, and that secures the headlight in place. And with a quick check to make sure everything's working, that is the headlight done. Moving on to the final part of the puzzle, and that is attaching the bumper back to the rest of the car. So you can see me here, I'm putting the L-shaped bracket, attaching it onto the wing using a Torx bolt, and I'm going to do that on both sides of the car, and that will allow the bumper to simply clip on back to the car. Once I've done that, I'm going to then feed the windscreen washer motor back inside the windscreen washer bottle to allow the water to come out of the headlight washers. And finally, it's now time to attach the bumper back to the car. Now, this can be tricky to do single-handedly, so it's always good to get a bit of help where you can. And big up to my uncle for helping me out with this last part. It really did make the difference. On the final parts of the puzzle was simply just replacing the fog lights around trim and the emblem. Although the emblem didn't want to play a game, so I've ordered some new ones and they're going to be coming in the post very soon. All that's left to do is simply screw back on the arch lining, bolt the wheel back onto the car, remove the jack stands and lower the car, torque up the wheels to 120 Newton meters of torque, and finally screw on the registration plate, and that is the rebuild sorted. And off it goes to the garage for its MOT. Now guys, I'm just going to show you up close of the car. As you can see, we did do as much as we can to obviously get it road legal. So obviously the headlight was replaced and it's fully working, as you can tell. The wing was also replaced, but in terms of the panel gap as well, it's as close as I could get it, to be honest with you. It is a nice even straight edge all around. It is ever so slightly wider than the opposite side, but it's not that much, to be honest with you, and I'm happy with the way it's come out. Now, one of my neighbours was actually very helpful to bang the crease out of the bonnet as much as they could. It obviously definitely does need respraying and taking out a little bit more, but I'm very happy with how that's come out. It does not impede the headlight anymore, so that'll do for now. Eagle-eyed viewers will definitely see a couple of differences towards the front end since the last time you saw the car, but can you spot them? If you can, make sure you comment below what you think it is. I will be talking about this further in another video, but let me know if you figured it out. Now, it has been a few weeks since obviously the car's been on the road, so it has been in daily use, and especially with all the snow and everything, the car has got muckier than ever. I mean, just look at the state of that. It's every detailer's worst nightmare. But don't worry, one part of this series will be me executing a full detail on this car, and you can get to see step by step of how I detail a car and the reasons behind why I do it in a certain way. And just to prove it to you guys that the car is fully repaired, take a look at this. Just watch. Not a single warning light on there other than the seatbelt one, but that's because I haven't got my seatbelt on. But this just makes me extremely happy, because before you had every single light that was on there, the parking sensors weren't working, the auto hold wasn't working, but all these functions are now working properly. I mean, look at that. That's just perfect. As promised, I did say that I was going to go through the costings of this rebuild. So one of the first things that I bought for the car was the wing, which was actually a colour match to this vehicle. I got very lucky in finding that. I picked up the wing for £90. Then I purchased the headlight, which again I thought was definitely a bargain, because this car has the adaptive xenon headlight setup, which has the 3 ballasts on the headlight, but I managed to pick that up for £140. I then did everything that I could to try and find a colour match bumper for the the car. But I don't know if this is something about Audi drivers in general, but for the life of me, I could not find a single genuine color matched bumper for this car, which leads me to believe that a lot of these cars have been in front end collisions. I went on eBay and I found one of the insurance approved prime bumpers that are already sprayed for £80. I then had one of my neighbors who does bodywork resprays to spray the bumper for me, and that was £150. The car also needed a new headlight and a new washer jet, which both of those came to a total of £40. And don't worry, we're not done there. The car also needed a bumper bracket to attach the bumper to the wing seamlessly. That cost me £11. And by that point, the car was ready to send for its MOT. Once it actually went for its MOT, so that was £40 for the MOT. So the car needed the offside front suspension arm pin stroke bush needed replacing on that, so I had that replaced, and that was £60. And it looked like we were plain sailing, but of course the car had other ideas, but luckily it was minor. The car then needed a side indicator for the wing mirror, so we got that ordered as well, which was £20. And finally, the warning lights cost £40. So the cost of all of that, silly little me forgot to mention that we did actually need to change the battery as well, and it completely went over my head, but the battery was £120 from Costco. So the cost of all of that, off the top of my head, I can't tell you, but I'll put the total right here for you. And including the cost of the car, this is how much we spent altogether so far. Now, my budget for this rebuild, and I did set a contingency mark at £1,000, just in case there were things that needed to be done to the car that I couldn't have foreseen beforehand. And I actually think that, given that I've done most of the repair at home myself, I've actually come in on budget quite well, so I'm very, very happy about that. I do have to give a shout out to my mechanic, Alex at A4 Motors. He is one of the best of the best out there. Can't thank him enough for A, getting the car in as soon as he could, and B, fixing the faults with no stress whatsoever. But anyway guys, that is the end of this video and part 2 of the rebuild. I am so unbelievably happy that I managed to get the car on the road. It has definitely been the biggest bane of my life, and although the damage didn't look that bad when I first got it, the stress of having to repair it in a certain amount of time and then get all the warning lights cleared and everything like that just took its toll on me. But I'm super glad that the car's on the road. My sister can now use it, and it just means that now we can start modifying it ever so slightly. So be ready guys, because part 3 is going to be coming before you even know it. But if you did enjoy this video, please make sure that you give it a like and make sure you subscribe to my channel as well. And other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video, and remember, keep it detailed.